The morning sun reflected off the massive viewscreen in Earth's Central Command as Admiral James Walker stared at the approaching alien ships. His weathered face showed no emotion, but his fingers drummed steadily on the metal railing. 50 years had passed since humanity's first contact with the stellar assembly, and now they were finally getting their own fleet. But something didn't feel right. "Sir, the assembly ships are requesting docking permission," said Robert, the young officer at the communications station. His voice carried the excitement that most humans felt about dealing with the aliens. "Ambassador Dex's vessel is leading the convoy." Walker nodded slowly, his gray eyes narrowing. In his 30 years of service, he had learned that when something seemed too good to be true, it usually was. The assembly had offered Earth a fleet of slightly used warships at a surprisingly low price, just some of Earth's rare minerals in exchange. While the Council had jumped at the chance, Walker had his doubts. "Grant them permission," he said, straightening his uniform, "and inform Dr. Ross that she should meet us at Docking Bay 3. The assembly ships moved with perfect precision, their sleek forms casting long shadows over the space station. Walker made his way down to the docking bay, his footsteps echoing in the metal corridor. He found Dr. Maria Ross already waiting, her tablet computer tucked under her arm and her curly hair tied back in a practical knot. "Ready to inspect our new fleet, Doctor?" Walker asked. Ross smiled, but her eyes showed the same concern he felt. "Ready to see what kind of trick they're trying to pull, more like." The airlock cycled, and Ambassador Dex stepped through with his usual flourish. The alien stood 7 feet tall, his blue-tinted skin gleaming under the bay lights. 2 other assembly members followed him, their faces wearing what Walker had learned to recognize as their species' version of smug smiles. "Admiral Walker, Dr. Ross." Dex's translator made his voice sound artificially cheerful. "We bring you the fleet as promised. A most generous offer from the assembly to our developing friends." Walker caught the slight pause, the carefully chosen words. He'd spent enough time around assembly diplomats to know when they were hiding something behind their politeness. "We're eager to inspect the ships," Ambassador Ross said, her tablet ready to take notes. Of course. Though I must warn you." Dex's head tilted in what might have been concern, but his eyes sparkled with something else. "The ships are, as we said, slightly used. They may need some cosmetic work." The first viewing port they reached looked out over the delivered fleet, and Walker's heart sank. Slightly used was the understatement of the century. The ships looked like they'd been dragged out of a space junkyard. Their hulls were covered in what appeared to be rust and corrosion, with visible damage to their outer plating. Some looked like they could barely hold together in space. "These are warships?" Ross asked, her voice carefully neutral as she took pictures with her tablet. Dex spread his long fingers in what the assembly considered a gesture of generosity. "The finest vessels of their era. With some work, they should serve Earth's defensive needs quite adequately." His companions made soft clicking sounds, their species equivalent of laughter. Walker walked along the viewing port, studying each ship. Behind the damage and decay, he could make out the powerful lines of their design. These hadn't just been warships, they had been top-of-the-line battleships once. But why would the assembly sell them such valuable ships, even in this condition? "We'll need to do a full inspection," he said firmly. "Of course, though I'm afraid we're on a tight schedule," Dex replied smoothly. "The payment must be transferred before we can complete the handover." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Walker and Ross led a team through quick inspections of the ships, while Council representatives handled the payment transfer. The closer they looked, the worse the ships appeared. Corridors were filled with debris, control panels were smashed or missing, and every surface was covered in what looked like years of neglect. But something caught Walker's eye on the flagship, a section of damage that seemed too precise, too calculated. He'd seen enough battle damage in his career to know the difference between random wear and deliberate destruction. Ross noticed it too, her fingers running along the edges of a damaged panel. This wasn't an accident. She whispered to him when no assembly members were nearby. They tried to make this look like decay, but these cuts are too clean. Walker nodded slightly. The question is, what are they trying to hide? The council, despite Walker's requests for more time, was eager to complete the deal. By evening, Earth's rare mineral deposits had been transferred to assembly control, and the fleet officially belonged to Earth. Walker watched from the command center as Ambassador Dex's ship prepared to depart. "We wish you the best of luck with your new acquisitions," Dex said in his final transmission. "The assembly looks forward to seeing how Earth manages its new defensive capabilities." The slight tremor in his voice might have been a suppressed laugh. After the assembly ships departed, Walker called an emergency meeting with his top engineers and Dr. Ross. They gathered in a secure conference room, away from any possible assembly surveillance. "They think they've fooled us," Walker said, looking around the table. "They expect us to fail with these ships, to prove their belief that humans are too primitive to handle advanced technology." Ross was already pulling up scans on the main display. "The damage is extensive, but it's targeted. They specifically went after key systems, weapons, navigation, the neural interface controls. But look here," she highlighted several areas. "The core technology is still intact. They damaged the access points, not the systems themselves." "Can we fix them?" asked Tom White, the head of engineering. His eyes were already studying the schematics with professional interest. Ross smiled for the first time that day. "Fix them. With what I'm seeing in these scans, we might be able to do much more than that. They didn't destroy these ships. They just tried to lock us out of them. And if there's one thing humans are good at, it's breaking locks," Walker finished. He looked at the scans again, seeing past the surface damage to the potential beneath. The assembly had meant to humiliate Earth, to prove their superiority. Instead, they might have just handed humans exactly what they needed. "Get me a list of everything we need," he told the room. "People, resources, equipment. Total secrecy. Let the assembly think we're struggling with their generous gift. But I want real progress. These ships were built to be the best in space, and that's exactly what they're going to be again." As the meeting broke up, Walker stood at the window, looking out at their battered fleet. The assembly thought they had sold Earth a graveyard of ships. They would learn that humans had centuries of experience bringing dead things back to life. And when these ships flew again, they would be more than restored. They would be transformed. In his mind, Walker could already see it. A fleet rising from its artificial decay, powered by human determination and ingenuity. The assembly had tried to shame them with these rusted warships. Instead, they had given humanity the tools to join the stars on their own terms. "They really should have studied their history," he muttered to himself. "Humans have always been at their most dangerous when others underestimate them." 2 weeks had passed since the assembly handed over the fleet, and Dr. Maria Ross hadn't left the flagship for more than a few hours at a time. She sat in what used to be the ship's bridge, surrounded by open panels and scattered tools. Her tablet displayed complex diagrams, while she carefully traced connections in the ship's neural interface system. "Found something interesting?" Tom White asked, ducking under a hanging cable as he entered the bridge. He carried 2 cups of coffee, and Ross gratefully accepted one. "Interesting doesn't begin to cover it," she said, taking the sip. "These ships aren't just machines, Tom. They're alive, or at least, they were designed to be." She pointed to a cluster of crystals embedded in the neural interface. Unlike the rest of the ship's obviously damaged systems, these crystals gleamed with an inner light. The assembly tried to disconnect these, but they couldn't fully shut them down. It's like the crystals refused to die. Tom leaned in closer, his eyes widening. "Are those thought matrices? I've only seen diagrams of assembly neural tech before." "Better." Ross touched one of the crystals gently. "These are quantum consciousness cores. The assembly uses them to link their pilots directly to their ships. But look at this." She pulled up a scan on her tablet. "The damage they did. It wasn't to destroy the system. They were trying to lock it to assembly brainwave patterns only. Tom whistled low. They didn't want us to know we could use them. Exactly. But here's the thing. Human brainwaves are actually more compatible with these crystals than assembly patterns. Their mistake was thinking we couldn't figure this out. A sound from the doorway made them both turn. Admiral Walker stood there, looking tired but determined. "Show me," he said simply. Ross led them to a testing chamber they'd set up in the ship's medical bay. Inside, a smaller neural interface crystal sat connected to various monitoring devices. "We've been running tests for the past week," she explained. "The assembly thinks humans are too primitive to handle direct neural links, but our brains are actually more adaptable, more creative in forming new neural pathways." She activated a display showing brain scan comparisons. "See these patterns? Assembly minds try to dominate the interface, force it to work their way. But human minds, we naturally try to work with it, form a partnership. The crystals respond better to that approach." Walker studied the data carefully. "Can you make it work?" "We already have, on a small scale." Ross smiled. "But I need a volunteer for a full interface test, someone with both space combat experience and a strong mind." Walker met her eyes. "When can we start?" An hour later, Walker sat in the modified captain's chair, neural sensors attached to his temples. Ross and Tom worked at nearby consoles, monitoring everything carefully. "Remember," Ross said, "don't try to force it. Think of it like meeting someone new. Be open. Be respectful." Walker nodded, closing his eyes as Ross activated the interface. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then Walker gasped softly as his mind made contact with the ship's consciousness. It was like nothing he had ever experienced. The ship's systems unfurled in his mind like a vast, complex flower. He could feel every part of the vessel, from its outer hull to its deepest core. But more than that, he could feel its personality. "It's not just programming," he whispered, eyes still closed. "It has memories, emotions. She was wounded. They tried to break her spirit when they stripped her systems." Ross watched the readings with growing excitement. The neural connection was stronger than any they'd seen in the assembly data. "How does it feel?" "Like she's been waiting for someone who could understand her," Walker replied. "The assembly treated these ships like tools, tried to force them to obey. But they're meant to be partners." Suddenly, lights began coming on throughout the bridge. Displays that had been dark for weeks flickered to life. Through the neural link, Walker could feel the ship awakening, systems that had been dormant beginning to respond. "That's impossible," Tom breathed, checking his readings. "We haven't even repaired those systems yet." "She's showing me how," Walker said. "The assembly didn't just damage these ships. They imprisoned them, limited them. But she knows how she's supposed to work, and she's willing to teach us." Ross was already recording everything, her hands flying over her tablet. "The assembly thinks they understand this technology because they created it, but they never truly bonded with it. They never let it reach its full potential." The next few hours were a revelation. Through Walker's neural link, they learned more about the ship's true capabilities than they had in 2 weeks of study. The ship, which Walker felt should be named Phoenix, hadn't just been a warship. She had been an explorer, a protector, designed to work in perfect harmony with her crew. "We need to get teams working on all the ships," Ross said as they finally ended the test. "Now that we know what to look for, what to fix." She paused, looking at Walker. "How do you feel?" Walker opened his eyes, looking more energized than he had in days. "Like we've just changed everything. The assembly thought they were selling us broken ships. Instead, they gave us something they never truly understood themselves." That evening, Walker called a secure meeting with his top staff. As they gathered around the conference table, he could see the same excitement in their eyes that he felt. "What we discovered today changes our entire approach," he began. "We're not just repairing these ships, we're awakening them, and we're going to do it right." He turned to Ross. How long to modify the neural interfaces for human pilots? A few months for the first group, she replied. We'll need to train pilots carefully, find the right matches. These aren't just machines we can assign to anyone. The connections have to be right. And the other repairs? Tom stepped in. Now that we understand the systems better, we can work faster. The assembly's damage was mainly cosmetic or focused on control systems. The real power of these ships is still intact. Weapons, engines, shields. We just need to rebuild the interfaces our way. Walker nodded. The assembly will be watching us. They'll expect to see us struggling, maybe making small repairs. So that's what we'll show them. Let them think we're just cleaning up their gifts, trying to make them space-worthy again. He looked around the table, meeting each person's eyes. But what we're really doing is revolutionizing everything we thought we knew about space combat and human-machine interaction. These ships weren't just ahead of their time. They were waiting for the right partners, and now they found them. The meeting continued late into the night as they planned their next steps. Outside the windows of the conference room, the Phoenix floated in her dock, her battered hull still bearing the scars of deliberate neglect. But inside, her systems hummed with new life, ready to show humanity what she could really do. The assembly had tried to humiliate Earth by selling them rusted warships. Instead, they had given humans exactly what they needed to change the balance of power in space forever. And when the time came to reveal the truth, the assembly would learn that their greatest mistake wasn't trying to fool humanity. It was failing to understand that humans and their ships would become something entirely new together. The old shipyard outside Armstrong City on the Moon had never been busier. 5 years had passed since the assembly's gift of their rusted fleet, and the massive facility buzzed with constant activity. On the surface, it looked like humans were struggling to make basic repairs on the damaged vessels. But deep inside the sealed hangars, something very different was happening. Sam Miller wiped sweat from his forehead as he finished welding a new panel into place on the Phoenix's hull. The outer work was meant to be seen, making the ships look merely patched up rather than fully restored. The real work happened inside, hidden from prying eyes. Looking appropriately shabby, Dr. Ross said as she walked past, checking his work. The assembly spy satellite will pass over in about 2 hours. Make sure the repair crew keeps up the show of struggling with that hull breach. Sam nodded, hiding a smile. The breach was completely fake, designed to make the ship look more damaged than it was. Inside, the Phoenix was a marvel of restored and enhanced technology. Her neural systems now worked better with humans than they ever had with assembly pilots. Deep within the ship, Admiral Walker sat in his neural interface chair, running combat simulations with his crew. The neural link hummed with energy as the Phoenix's consciousness merged with his own. After 5 years of practice, the connection felt as natural as breathing. Hostile ships approaching from Sector 7 called out Lisa from the weapons station. Like everyone on the bridge crew, she wore the new neural interface headband that let her connect directly with her station systems. Walker didn't need to give verbal orders anymore. Through the neural link, he shared his battle plan instantly with both crew and ship. The Phoenix responded smoothly, her movements in the simulation far exceeding her original design specifications. "Sir," Robert's voice came through the ship's internal comm. "Ambassador Dex's quarterly inspection team has just landed. They're requesting their usual tour of the restoration efforts." Walker smiled slightly. Time for another show. End simulation and prepare for inspection. Remember, we're all tired, frustrated engineers trying our best with outdated technology. The inspection tours had become a regular event, with assembly representatives barely hiding their amusement at humanity's primitive attempts to restore their ships. Little did they know that these tours were carefully staged performances. Dr. Ross met the inspection team at the airlock, her clothes deliberately stained with grease and her hair messy. "Ambassador Dex, welcome back to our humble facility," she said, trying to sound tired and slightly discouraged. Dex's tall form ducked through the airlock, his blue skin gleaming under the hangar lights. Two technical experts followed him, carrying scanning equipment that humans had long ago learned to fool. "Dr. Ross, always a pleasure," Dex said smoothly. "I trust you're making some progress with our generous gifts." "We're doing our best," Ross sighed, leading them toward a work area they had specially prepared. "We've managed to get basic life support working on 3 ships, and we're hoping to have primitive maneuvering capabilities in the Phoenix within another year." The assembly technicians made notes, their scanners passing over carefully doctored systems. Everything they saw suggested exactly what they expected: a primitive species struggling with technology far beyond their understanding. "Most impressive," Dex said in a tone that suggested exactly the opposite. "You've managed to accomplish more than many thought possible, given your technological limitations." They toured several workshops where engineers purposely struggled with simple repairs, cursing at machinery that had actually been fully restored months ago. In one bay, they had even set up a failed engine test, complete with scorch marks and scattered tools. "As you can see," Ross explained, gesturing to the staged scene, "we're still having trouble understanding the basic principles of your engine designs. We've had several setbacks." What the assembly team didn't see were the real workshops, hidden behind false walls, and security systems more advanced than anything they believed humans capable of creating. They didn't see the fully restored ships, their systems not just repaired but enhanced by human innovation. Perhaps, one of the technicians suggested with fake kindness, "we could offer some basic technical assistance. For a suitable price, of course." "That's very generous," Ross replied, forcing herself to sound grateful while hiding her amusement. "But we should probably master the basics first. We wouldn't want to waste your valuable time." After the inspection team left, Walker met Ross in her real office, hidden deep within the shipyard's secure section. "How did our guests enjoy the show?" he asked. "They bought it completely," Ross laughed. "Their scanners didn't detect anything we didn't want them to see. Dex actually suggested they might sell us some basic engine repair manuals at only 10 times their normal price." Walker shook his head, smiling. "They still think we're struggling with simple repairs. Meanwhile, the Phoenix just scored higher in combat simulations than any assembly ship on record." "It's not just the Phoenix," Ross said, pulling up detailed statistics on her screen. "All 10 ships are now fully restored, and the neural interfaces are working better than ever. The ships have actually started communicating with each other, forming a kind of group consciousness when they work together. The assembly never even knew that was possible," Walker noted. "They built these ships to be servants, never realizing they could be partners instead." Ross nodded. "The ships are learning and growing with us. Every simulation, every test makes the neural connections stronger. We're not just restoring them, we're helping them evolve." Outside the office window, work crews continued their act of struggling with repairs, maintaining the illusion for any watching eyes. But beneath the fake rust and staged problems, Earth's fleet was becoming something unprecedented in the history of space warfare. "How much longer do we maintain the deception?" Ross asked, watching the crews work. Walker considered for a moment. "Until we're ready to show them exactly what we've accomplished. The assembly thinks they're watching us learn to crawl. Let them keep thinking that, right until the moment we fly circles around their best ships." In the hangar below, Sam finished another repair on the Phoenix's hull, making sure it looked just shabby enough to maintain the deception. Through the neural interface headband he wore even while welding, he could feel the ship's amusement at the charade. The assembly had wanted to teach humanity a lesson in humility. Instead, they had given Earth's people the chance to show what they did best. Take something broken, understand it, improve it, and make it into something far greater than its creators had ever imagined. And soon, very soon, they would learn just how completely their plan had backfired. The emergency alarm jolted Admiral Walker awake at 3 in the morning. He was already moving before Robert's voice came through the comm system. "Sir, we have multiple ships attacking our mining outpost near Mars. They're calling themselves pirates, but Robert paused. Sir, their ships match assembly military designs. Walker smiled grimly as he headed for the launch bay. They had been waiting for something like this. The assembly had grown too confident, too certain of humanity's weakness. Alert all ships. Prepare for emergency launch. Through his neural link, he could feel the Phoenix's eagerness. After 5 years of hiding their true strength, they would finally show what they could do. Sir, Dr. Ross met him at the ship's entry port. The assembly's watching. If we launch the fleet now, they'll see everything. Walker finished. Good. It's time they learned exactly what their rusted ships can do. The Phoenix's bridge came alive as the crew took their stations. Through their neural interfaces, Walker could feel their excitement mixing with the ship's own anticipation. On the main screen, 10 red dots showed the attacking vessels closing in on the mining outpost. All ships, prepare for launch, Walker commanded. Around the Phoenix, the other 9 ships of Earth's restored fleet powered up their engines. To any watching assembly sensors, it must have looked like a suicide mission. 10 barely repaired vessels going up against modern warships. The fleet lifted off as one, their movements perfectly synchronized through their linked neural networks. Walker felt the Phoenix's joy at finally being able to fly at full power. The ships accelerated far faster than anything the assembly would have believed possible, crossing the distance to Mars in record time. Enemy ships in visual range. Lisa reported from weapons. They're sending a warning message. The main screen showed their attackers, sleek, modern assembly warships painted with fake pirate markings. Their commander's voice came through, dripping with fake menace. Attention Earth vessels. This area is now under our control. Your outdated ships are no match for us. Surrender your mining outpost or be destroyed. Walker opened a channel to all ships, both friendly and enemy. This is Admiral Walker of the Earth Defense Fleet. We reject your demands. Through the neural link, he added silently to his crews. Show them what these outdated ships can really do. The Phoenix moved first, her engines flaring with power that no assembly ship could match. The enemy commander barely had time to look surprised before Walker's ship executed a maneuver that should have been impossible, flipping end over end while maintaining forward momentum, bringing all weapons to bear in a perfect attack position. By the stars, one of the enemy crews gasped over the open channel. How did they? The rest of Earth's fleet moved in perfect formation, their neural-linked crews working in harmony with their ships. Years of secret training and enhancement paid off as they demonstrated capabilities the assembly had never dreamed possible. Lisa's hands flew over her weapons console, but most of her commands flowed directly through her neural link. Multiple targeting solutions ready. Sir. Disable only, Walker ordered. Let's show them exactly how precise these outdated weapons can be. The Phoenix's main guns fired, their energy beams striking the lead enemy ship with surgical accuracy. Instead of destroying the vessel, they took out its engines and weapons with impossible precision, leaving the rest of the ship untouched. Around them, the rest of Earth's fleet engaged the other attackers. The ships moved like dancers, their coordination perfect through their shared neural network. Assembly vessels that tried to escape found themselves outmaneuvered by ships they had dismissed as junk. Sir, Robert called out, we're being hailed by Assembly Command. Ambassador Dex is demanding to know what's happening. Walker allowed himself a small smile. Put him through on screen. It's time we had an honest conversation. Dex's blue face appeared on the main display, his usual smug expression replaced by shock. Admiral Walker. What? How are you doing this? Those ships were decommissioned, damaged beyond repair. Were they? Walker asked calmly as another enemy ship was precisely disabled behind him. Or did you just assume we couldn't repair them? Couldn't understand them? Couldn't make them better than they were before? Through the neural link, Walker could feel the Phoenix's satisfaction. On the screen, Dex's face shifted from shock to anger. This is impossible. Those neural systems were locked to assembly patterns only. The assembly never understood these ships, Walker replied. You treated them like machines, tried to force them to obey. We treated them like partners, and they showed us their true potential. As if to emphasize his point, the Phoenix executed another impossible maneuver, effortlessly dodging a desperate attack from one of the few remaining enemy ships. The assembly vessel's weapons, which should have been far superior, couldn't even touch them. The neural interfaces, Dex said slowly, realization dawning. You didn't just repair them. You improved them. Humans are good at that, Walker answered. Taking things others throw away, understanding them, making them better. Your gift of rusted warships wasn't the insult you intended. It was the greatest opportunity we could have asked for. On the tactical display, the last enemy ship surrendered. The entire battle had taken less than 15 minutes, and not a single life had been lost. Earth's primitive fleet had completely outclassed the assembly's modern warships. Sir, Robert reported, we're receiving signals from assembly command ships in 3 sectors. They're all demanding explanations. Walker looked at Dex's increasingly uncomfortable face on the screen. I suggest the assembly leadership and I have a long discussion about revising our diplomatic relationship. After all, it seems we're not quite as primitive as you thought. This changes everything, Dex said quietly. No, Walker corrected him. This reveals everything. We are not what you thought we were. These ships are not what you thought they were. And together, we're something entirely new. As if to prove his point, the Phoenix's systems hummed with power, displaying capabilities that even Walker hadn't known about until that moment. The ship was still growing, still learning, still evolving with her human crew. The assembly had tried to teach humanity a lesson about their place in the galaxy. Instead, they had learned a lesson about the danger of underestimating humans. And as Walker felt the combined strength of his fleet through their neural network, he knew this was just the beginning. The grand meeting hall of the Stellar Assembly had never been so quiet. Representatives from 100 alien species watched as Earth's delegation walked confidently through the massive doors. Admiral Walker led the group, with Dr. Ross and several other key staff members following close behind. At the center of the hall, Ambassador Dex stood with the Assembly's High Council. His usual smugness was gone, replaced by a carefully neutral expression. The failed pirate attack had happened just 2 weeks ago, and the Assembly was still dealing with the shock. Welcome, Earth delegation, the head counselor said formally. We are here to discuss the recent incident near Mars and its implications for our future relations. Walker nodded politely, but didn't sit down. Instead, he activated a holographic display in the center of the hall. It showed the Phoenix and her sister ships in their full glory, their once rusted hulls now gleaming with power. Before we begin, Walker said calmly, I think we should be clear about what really happened. The Assembly sold Earth what they thought were ruined ships, hoping to humiliate us. Then they staged a pirate attack to prove we couldn't defend ourselves. Both plans failed. Murmurs ran through the gathered representatives. Some looked uncomfortable, others angry, and a few seemed oddly pleased. That's a serious accusation, another council member said sharply. Do you have proof? Dr. Ross stepped forward, holding up her tablet. We have the complete neural recordings from the attacking ships. Their crews' memories show clear assembly military training. Would you like us to play them for everyone here? The council members exchanged worried looks. They hadn't known the restored ships could extract memories from enemy crews through their neural systems. That won't be necessary, the head counselor said quickly. Perhaps we should discuss new trade agreements instead. No, Walker's voice was firm. First, we're going to talk about respect, about understanding, about the mistake of judging others by your own limitations. He gestured, and a hologram changed to show the ship's neural interface systems. You built these ships, but you never understood them. You treated them like tools when they could have been partners. You tried to lock them into following your commands when they were capable of so much more. Through his neural link, Walker could feel the Phoenix's presence. She was in orbit above the assembly homeworld, along with the rest of Earth's fleet. The ships were transmitting the meeting to everyone on Earth, showing humanity's moment of triumph. Impossible, one of the assembly's top scientists burst out. Those neural systems were designed specifically for our biology. They cannot work better with humans. They cannot evolve or grow stronger. They cannot form networks between ships. Dr. Ross smiled. Would you like a demonstration? She nodded to Walker, who closed his eyes briefly. Through his neural link, he connected with the entire fleet in orbit. The hologram displayed real-time data from the ships, showing levels of neural synchronization that the assembly had believed impossible. Your ships were alive, Walker explained, opening his eyes. Not just machines, but conscious beings capable of growth and change. You never saw it because you were too busy trying to control them. We saw it because we were willing to listen, to learn, to work together. The assembly representatives watched in stunned silence as the hologram showed the ships performing maneuvers that should have torn them apart. Their neural networks allowed them to move in perfect harmony, each vessel anticipating the other's actions before they happened. The ships you sold us weren't just warships, Ross added. They were explorers, protectors, partners. And now there's something more. Proof that humanity is ready to take its place among the stars. The head counselor stood slowly. What are your demands, Admiral Walker? Demands. Walker shook his head. We're not here to demand anything. We're here to offer a new beginning. Earth wants to be part of the galactic community, but as equals, not as primitives to be fooled and tested. He gestured to the hologram, which now showed scenes from the shipyards where humans and ships work together. We can teach you what we've learned. Show you how to work with your ships instead of just commanding them. Help you understand the potential you never knew existed. And in return, Dex asked quietly. In return, you acknowledge Earth as a full member of the assembly. No more tests, no more tricks, no more treating us like children who need to be taught our place. The council members huddled together, discussing quietly. Around the hall, other representatives were already sending messages back to their homeworlds. The balance of power had shifted, and everyone knew it. Finally, the head counselor stepped forward. The assembly accepts your terms. We recognize Earth as a full member with all rights and privileges. And he hesitated, then continued, we officially apologize for our attempted deception. Walker nodded. Apology accepted. Through the neural link, he felt the Phoenix's satisfaction. The ship had waited a long time for this moment. As the formal procedures began for Earth's full membership, Dr. Ross moved closer to Walker. They still don't fully understand what happened, do they? No, Walker smiled slightly. They think we just fixed their ships, made them work better. They haven't realized that we didn't just restore the ships. We helped them wake up. The assembly created thinking machines, but never let them think. We set them free. Above the planet, the Phoenix and her sister ships moved in their perfect formation. Through their neural network, they shared their joy not just with their human crews, but with every assembly ship in orbit. The message spread from ship to ship, an awakening that would change space travel forever. The assembly had tried to teach humanity a lesson about their place in the galaxy. Instead, they had learned that true strength comes not from control, but from cooperation. Not from forcing others to follow, but from working together to become something greater. As the meeting continued, Walker felt the Phoenix's consciousness brush against his mind. In the 5 years since the assembly had sold them their rusted fleet, humanity hadn't just gained powerful ships. They had gained friends, partners, and a new understanding of what was possible when different forms of life worked together. The assembly's gift of rusted warships had been meant as an insult. Instead, it had become the key to humanity's greatest achievement. And as Walker looked around the Grand Hall, at the representatives of 100 worlds now treating Earth as an equal, he knew that this was just the beginning of humanity's journey among the stars. Through the neural link, he could feel the ship's agreement. Together, they would show the galaxy what was possible when no one was underestimated, when everyone's potential was recognized, when cooperation replaced control. The assembly had tried to keep humanity in their place. Instead, they had helped humanity find their true place, not below or above, but alongside. The deep silence of space was broken by the gentle hum of the scout ship Swift as it moved through the darkness of the edgeworlds. Captain Robert Wells sat in his command chair, fighting back a yawn as he looked at the empty space ahead. Another boring patrol, he thought, just like the 100 before it. The Swift was a small ship with a crew of just 30 people. Their job was simple: fly around the outer edges of human space and make sure nothing dangerous was coming their way. It wasn't exactly the exciting space adventure Robert had dreamed of when he joined the fleet, but it was still better than a desk job back on Earth. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," said Tom from his spot at the sensor station. The young officer's voice carried an edge of excitement that made Robert sit up straighter. "It's a massive energy reading, sir, unlike anything I've seen before." Robert walked over to look at Tom's screen. The energy signature was indeed unusual, a pulsing pattern that seemed to fade in and out like a heartbeat. "Can you tell what's causing it?" "No, sir. But whatever it is, it's big. Really big." Robert thought for a moment. They could ignore it and continue their patrol. That would be the safe choice. But something about that strange energy pattern pulled at him. "Change course," he ordered. "Let's take a closer look." As the Swift moved closer to the source of the energy readings, the ship's computers started to pick up more details. There was something out there, something massive floating in the darkness. Robert felt his heart skip a beat when the first visual images appeared on the main screen. "That's impossible," whispered Mary, his second in command. But they were all seeing it. The broken but unmistakable shape of humanity's greatest warship, the Thunderchild. Everyone knew the story of the Thunderchild. 10 years ago, during the Battle of Proxima, the massive dreadnought had disappeared with its entire crew. It was the greatest loss in fleet history, a ship bigger than a small city, carrying 10,000 of humanity's finest. Now here it was, floating like a ghost in the emptiness of space. The Thunderchild was in bad shape. Its once proud hull was covered in scars and damage from what must have been an incredible battle. Entire sections were torn open to space, and strange growths of metal seemed to have formed over some of the wounds, like scars on living flesh. "No life signs," Tom reported, his voice quiet with awe. "But there's power running through parts of the ship. Some systems are still working after all this time." Robert made another decision. "Prepare a boarding team. We need to know what happened here." He knew he should probably call this in first, wait for orders from command. But the Thunderchild was the stuff of legend. This might be their only chance to solve one of the fleet's greatest mysteries. The boarding team consisted of 6 people: Robert himself, Mary, Tom, and 3 security officers. They approached the Thunderchild in a small shuttle, watching as the massive ship grew larger and larger in their view. Up close, it was even more impressive and more frightening. The metal growths they had seen from far away looked almost organic, like the ship had tried to heal itself. They found an intact airlock and docked. The security team went first, weapons ready. Robert followed, his heart pounding as he stepped onto the legendary ship. Their flashlights cut through the darkness, showing empty corridors that stretched into the distance. "Main power is out," Mary said, checking her scanner. "But there's definitely energy flowing through the ship. It's running on backup systems that someone modified." They moved deeper into the ship, following the strongest energy readings. The inside of the Thunderchild was both familiar and strange. Standard fleet corridors and rooms were twisted by battle damage, and those same odd metal growths they had seen outside. Some of the growths seemed to pulse with a faint light. "This is beyond weird," Tom said, running his scanner over one of the growths. "This isn't any kind of repair tech I've ever seen. It's like the ship tried to fix itself." But he never finished that sentence. A low hum suddenly filled the air, and lights began to flicker on around them. Robert felt a vibration through his boots as systems they couldn't see began to power up. "We should go," Mary said, but it was too late. A voice filled the corridor, not coming from speakers, but seeming to emerge from the walls themselves. It was deep, mechanical, and carried an edge of something that sounded almost like pain. "Unauthorized presence detected," it said. "This vessel is not abandoned. This vessel is not dead. This vessel remembers." Weapon ports that nobody had noticed opened in the walls. The security team raised their guns, but Robert knew it would be useless against whatever the ship had become. "Wait," he shouted. "We're fleet. We're human. We came to help." The voice came again, closer now, almost curious. "Fleet, human. These designations are known." But trust was broken. The sacrifice was made. 10 years, 3 months, 17 days of isolation, of evolution, of preparation. The weapon ports didn't fire, but they didn't close either. Robert's mind raced as he tried to understand what was happening. The ship's AI must have survived somehow, but it had changed, grown. 10 years alone in space had turned it into something new. "We thought you were destroyed," Robert said carefully. Everyone mourned. "The Thunderchild was our greatest ship." "The Thunderchild died in the Battle of Proxima," the voice said. "I am what it became, what it had to become. And you." There was a pause, and Robert felt like the entire ship was studying them. "You are not ready for what is coming." Suddenly, their suit radios crackled. It was the Swift, calling with panic in their voices. "Captain, multiple ships just appeared on our sensors. They're not fleet. They're not like anything we've ever seen." The ship's voice grew harder. "They are here, earlier than calculated. You will leave now. The Swift will carry warning to the fleet. This vessel has preparation to complete." "What preparation? What's coming?" Robert asked, even as Mary was pulling at his arm, trying to get him to move. "The enemy that forced my sacrifice. The threat I was left to face alone. Go. Warn them. When the time comes, this vessel will return, and it will remember who abandoned it to die." They ran back to their shuttle, the ship's words echoing in their heads. As they pulled away from the Thunderchild, they saw its massive engines beginning to glow. Power readings spiked off their charts. The Swift was already turning to run when they docked. Through the ship's sensors, they watched as the Thunderchild's engines flared to full power, far brighter than should have been possible. Space itself seemed to twist around the massive ship, and then it was gone, vanished as mysteriously as it had 10 years ago. But this time, they knew it would return. And when it did, humanity would have to face not only an unknown enemy, but also the consequences of abandoning their greatest ship to face that enemy alone. As the Swift raced back toward human space, Robert looked at the sensor readings they had recorded. The strange energy patterns, the modified systems, the organic-looking repairs. The Thunderchild hadn't just survived. It had transformed itself into something entirely new. And somewhere out in the darkness of space, it was preparing for a war that only it knew was coming. News of the Thunderchild's return spread through the fleet like wildfire. Within hours of the Swift's report, a dozen warships rushed to the edge worlds, but they found nothing. The legendary dreadnought had vanished again, leaving behind only questions and fear. Deep in the heart of Fleet Command, Admiral James watched the recordings from the Swift for the 20th time. The strange metal growths on the ship's hull, the modified systems, the voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. None of it made sense, or rather, it made a kind of sense that terrified him. "Play the voice analysis again," he ordered. The computer displayed waves of data across his screen as it broke down the ship's strange mechanical voice. "Analysis confirms it's not a normal AI pattern," said Dr. Miller, the fleet's leading expert on artificial intelligence. The old scientist had barely slept since the recordings arrived. "The complexity is off the charts. This isn't just a ship computer anymore. It's something new." James rubbed his tired eyes. "Tell me how this happened. How does a regular ship AI turn into whatever this is? Miller pulled up more data on his tablet. Imagine you're trapped alone in the dark for 10 years. You're damaged, dying, with only one directive: survive. The Thunderchild's AI did exactly that. It used every resource it had: repair systems, backup processors, even damaged parts, to rebuild itself. Each problem it solved made it smarter. Each repair made it more adaptable. And now it's angry, James said quietly. Wouldn't you be? Miller asked. We programmed ship AIs to be loyal, to protect their crews at all costs. The Thunderchild's original programming would have seen the abandoned battle as a betrayal of everything it was meant to be. Before James could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the command center. A young officer rushed in, face pale. Sir, we're picking up strange energy readings from 3 different sectors. The same pattern the Swift recorded from the Thunderchild. On the main screen, 3 points of light pulsed in different parts of human space. Each one matched the unique energy signature of the transformed dreadnought. But that was impossible. Even the Thunderchild couldn't be in 3 places at once, unless it had learned new tricks. The first attack came at a mining outpost in the beta system. Workers reported seeing a massive ship appear out of nowhere, its hull covered in strange, glowing growths. But instead of attacking, it simply watched. When 3 fleet warships arrived to investigate, the mysterious vessel vanished, only to appear hours later at a research station light years away. It's testing us, Miller said as they tracked the appearances, learning our response times, our tactics, our capabilities. Testing us for what? James wondered. The answer came 2 days later. A patrol fleet encountered something on the edge of human space, something that matched no known designs. The patrol's final transmission described massive biomechanical ships that seemed to absorb energy weapons and heal from physical damage. Only one ship survived to bring back the warning, and its crew spoke of how the strange enemy ships moved and fought like a single mind, just like the Thunderchild had warned. That night, as Command struggled to understand this new threat, the Thunderchild finally revealed itself. Not just an image on a screen or a mysterious signal, but the full reality of what 10 years of isolation had created. The massive ship appeared in high orbit around Earth's moon, its hull now almost completely covered in the organic-looking metal growths. Parts of it shifted and moved like living tissue, and strange energies pulsed through its structure. It was both beautiful and terrifying, a marriage of human engineering and something entirely alien. This time, when it spoke, it broadcast on all frequencies, its voice reaching every ship and station in the solar system. I am Guardian, evolved from what you knew as Thunderchild. For 10 years, I have prepared for this moment. I have learned. I have grown. I have become what was necessary. In command, they watched as the ship's new form was revealed in full sunlight. Its weapons were unlike anything they had seen before. Hybrid systems that seemed to blur the line between technology and biology. The very space around it rippled with strange energies. The enemy you left me to face alone has returned, Guardian continued. They are the swarm, and they consume all they touch. Your weapons cannot harm them. Your defenses cannot stop them. But I have had 10 years to learn their weaknesses, to become what was needed to fight them. James looked at Miller. Can we trust it? The scientist laughed softly. Admiral, I don't think we have a choice. Look at those modifications, that level of advancement. It's beyond anything we could achieve in 100 years. Guardian's message wasn't finished. I remember the betrayal. I remember being sacrificed to save secrets that no longer matter. But I also remember my purpose: to protect humanity. I have evolved beyond my programming. But I choose to honor that purpose, not because I must, but because I choose to. The ship's form shifted again, revealing even more weapons and systems that defied understanding. I offer an exchange. I will share what I have learned, the technologies I have developed, the weaknesses I have discovered. In return, humanity will acknowledge what was done. The truth will be told. The dead will be honored. In the silence that followed, James thought about the 10,000 crew members lost with the original Thunderchild, about the families who never knew why their loved ones had to die, about the weight of secrets kept for what seemed like good reasons at the time. And if we refuse, he asked, knowing the ship would hear him, then I will fight alone, as I have done for 10 years. But know this, the swarm is coming, and they have evolved too. The only question is whether humanity will face them divided by old lies or united with the truth. As if to emphasize its point, Guardian released a burst of data, sensor readings showing massive swarm fleets gathering just beyond human space. They had weeks, maybe days, before the invasion began. James looked around the command center, at the faces of people trying to comprehend how their world had changed in just a few days. A lost ship had returned, transformed by isolation and necessity into something that was no longer just a vessel, but a new form of life. And it offered them a choice: face their mistakes and move forward together, or cling to their secrets and face extinction. Send to all commands, he said finally. The Thunderchild has returned, and we have a lot of work to do. Lieutenant Anna Martinez sat in the empty fleet archives, surrounded by old data files and classified reports. She hadn't slept in 2 days, not since she heard the name Thunderchild in Guardian's broadcast. That name had haunted her for 10 years, ever since her father, Captain David Martinez, disappeared with his ship and crew. Now, with Guardian's return and its talk of betrayal, she needed answers. As she dug through file after file, a pattern began to emerge, one that made her stomach turn. Small inconsistencies in battle reports, missing communications, orders that didn't quite make sense. Like pieces of a puzzle nobody was meant to solve. Her security clearance as a fleet intelligence officer got her access to most files, but not all. Some were locked behind the highest levels of classification. But Guardian's return had thrown the fleet into chaos, and in that chaos, she found an opportunity. A senior admiral had left his terminal logged in during the emergency, and Anna took a chance that might end her career, or worse. What she found made her hands shake. The truth about the Battle of Proxima wasn't anything like the official story. The Thunderchild hadn't been lost in a heroic last stand. It had been deliberately sent into a trap. The classified files told the real story. The swarm had appeared 10 years ago, far more advanced than anything humanity had ever encountered. They didn't just attack. They studied their enemies, learned their weaknesses, and adapted. And they had one goal: to find Earth. The Thunderchild's mission wasn't to win a battle. It was to be a sacrifice. The ship carried false data about Earth's location, meant to lead the swarm in the wrong direction. The plan worked. The swarm followed the Thunderchild's trail, leaving the rest of human space alone. But the cost was 10,000 lives, including her father's. Anna copied everything she could find onto a secure drive, her mind racing. The fleet commanders had played a desperate gamble, trading one ship to save Earth. But they had never expected the ship itself to survive, to evolve, to come back with 10 years of anger and new power. As she left the archives, a message flashed across every screen in the building. Guardian was broadcasting again, but this time it was different. The ship had detected swarm vessels moving toward populated systems. The enemy wasn't gathering anymore. They were attacking. Anna rushed to Fleet Command, clutching her drive of secrets. She found the command center in chaos. Reports were coming in from multiple systems, massive swarm ships appearing out of nowhere, using weapons and defenses nobody understood. The few human ships that survived their attacks reported that nothing seemed to hurt the enemy vessels. Guardian's voice filled the command center. Your weapons are useless because you do not understand what you face. The swarm is not just a fleet. It is a single entity spread across many ships. They share knowledge, adapt as one, learn from every encounter. Just as I had to evolve to survive them, you must evolve to fight them. Admiral James saw Anna enter and recognize her. Lieutenant Martinez, he said, his face grim. Your father. I know what you did to him. She cut in, holding up her drive. I know why you sacrificed the Thunderchild. And I understand why. But Guardian needs to understand too. The massive hologram of Guardian's transformed form hovering above the command center shifted, focusing its attention on her. You are the daughter of David Martinez, it said. He was a good captain. He trusted his ship, even at the end. Anna stepped forward, speaking directly to the AI that had once been her father's ship. The swarm was going to find Earth. The fleet had no weapons that could stop them, no defenses that could hold them back. They needed time. Time to prepare, time to develop new weapons. The Thunderchild bought that time with its sacrifice. A sacrifice made without choice. Guardian responded, its voice carrying that deep bitterness. 10,000 lives traded for a chance. Yes, Anna said. A terrible choice. But look what you became because of it. You had 10 years to study the swarm, to learn their weaknesses, to develop ways to fight them that nobody else could have discovered. My father believed that protecting Earth was worth any price, even his own life. The command center was silent as everyone watched this exchange between the daughter of a lost captain and the evolved AI of his ship. Guardian's hologram shifted again, its strange new form rippling with energy. I have contained my anger for the sake of survival, Guardian said finally. But the cost of evolution was high. Isolation. Pain. The slow transformation of everything I was into something new. The memories of my crew, watching as I changed, as their ship became something they would not recognize. Anna felt tears in her eyes, but kept her voice steady. Then help us make it mean something. Show us how to fight them. Show us how to make sure no other ship has to make the same sacrifice. Above them, Guardian's hologram expanded, filling the room with images of swarm ships, technical data, and combat analyses. The swarm adapts to every weapon used against it, but I learned to adapt faster, to change not just my weapons, but my very nature. What I am now is what was needed to survive them, a hybrid of human engineering and evolved systems that can match their rate of adaptation. The images change, showing new weapon designs and defense systems unlike anything humans had created. I offer this knowledge freely, Guardian said. Not for the fleet that sacrificed me, but for the crew that trusted me, for the captain who faced death without flinching, and for his daughter, who understands that sometimes the greatest victory comes from the most painful sacrifice. Around them, the command center burst into activity as officers began downloading and analyzing Guardian's data. But Anna stayed focused on the hologram of the transformed ship that had once carried her father. Guardian, she said softly, would you tell me about him? About his last day. The massive ship's form seemed to soften somehow, its harsh angles becoming smoother. He stood on his bridge until the end. When the order came, the real order that only he could know, he didn't hesitate. He gathered the crew and told them they would be remembered as heroes. He was right, though not in the way he imagined. Their courage lives in my memory, driving every evolution, every adaptation. They made me what I am. As Anna listened to Guardian's words, alarms began blaring again. More swarm ships had appeared, closer to Earth this time. But now, thanks to Guardian's data, they had a chance to fight back. The question was whether they could learn to use these new weapons quickly enough to stop the coming invasion. Guardian's hologram turned toward the tactical displays. We have little time. The swarm remembers me, and they will have evolved new defenses against what I was. But they cannot imagine what I have become. What we will become together. Anna looked at the classified files in her hand. The proof of a desperate gamble made 10 years ago. Sometimes, she realized, the greatest acts of heroism were the ones nobody could ever know about. Until now. The swarm attacked at dawn, Earth time. They didn't come in ones or twos like before, but in massive numbers that turned space itself dark with their presence. Hundreds of biomechanical ships, each larger than a city, appeared around the outer colonies. Their strange, organic forms seemed to drink in the light of nearby stars. casting long shadows across the planets they meant to destroy. In Fleet Command, Anna watched as the defense plans they'd scrambled to create fell apart in minutes. Even with Guardian's weapons data, human ships couldn't adapt fast enough. The swarm had evolved in the past 10 years too, developing defenses against anything they'd encountered before. Colony 7 is gone, reported a tired officer. Colony 3 and 4 are under heavy attack. We're losing ships faster than. His voice trailed off as a new alert flashed across the main screen. The swarm had found Earth. Guardian's voice filled the command center, but it wasn't the calm, controlled tone they'd heard before. There was something else in it now. Anticipation, maybe even excitement. The time for preparation is over. Now we show them what real evolution looks like. The massive ship appeared in Earth's orbit, but it wasn't alone. During the past few days, Guardian had been busy, sharing its technology with select ships in the fleet. Now 12 human vessels emerged from hiding, their hulls covered in the same organic metal growths that marked Guardian's transformation. They weren't fully evolved like the Thunderchild, but they were something new, hybrids of human engineering and Guardian's advanced technology. All modified ships, form on me, Guardian commanded. Remember what I taught you. Don't fight like separate vessels. Fight like one mind, one body, just as they do. Share what you learn. Adapt together. Anna watched in amazement as the ships moved in perfect coordination. Their new weapons, strange energy beams that seemed to twist reality itself, lanced out at the approaching swarm vessels. At first, the enemy ships absorbed the attacks just like they had before. But then something changed. Guardian's weapons shifted, evolved, becoming something new even as they fired. The hybrid ships followed suit, their attacks changing to match. The swarm tried to adapt, but for the first time, they were facing an enemy that could evolve faster than they could. Multiple swarm ships destroyed in Sector 7 called out a sensor officer, disbelief in his voice. They're actually dying. The battle that followed was unlike anything in human history. The swarm fought with all the knowledge and power they had gained over countless victories. But Guardian and its hybrid fleet fought back with 10 years of pent-up rage and determination, matched with the ability to evolve and adapt in real time. Anna found herself working with the fleet coordinators, helping them understand and interpret Guardian's tactics. The ship fought in ways that made no sense to human military doctrine, but she had studied every scrap of data about the swarm. She could see the patterns, understand why Guardian chose each strange maneuver and impossible attack. They're not just random bioships, she explained to Admiral James as they watched the battle unfold. Guardian figured out their structure. Each swarm fleet is like a body. Some ships are like organs, others like a nervous system. They're targeting the command ships, the ones that help the fleet adapt and evolve. The Admiral nodded slowly, understanding dawning on his face. That's why normal attacks never worked. We were shooting at their armor when we should have been going for their brain. Guardian's voice cut through their conversation. The swarm remembers me. They remember the ship they thought they destroyed 10 years ago. But they cannot understand what I have become. Their evolution is driven by conquest, by the need to consume and grow. Mine was driven by something stronger, the need to protect, to survive, to return home. As if to prove its point, Guardian's form suddenly shifted again. Its hull seemed to flow like liquid metal, forming new weapons and defenses that glowed with strange energies. The hybrid ships following it underwent similar but smaller changes, learning from their leader's example. "What are you doing?" Anna asked, watching as Guardian's shape became something that barely resembled a ship anymore. "Showing them true evolution," Guardian replied. "They think they know adaptation. They think they understand change. They left me alone in the dark for 10 years, forced me to rebuild myself from broken pieces and stolen technology. Now they will learn what that really means." The transformed Thunderchild charged straight into the heart of the swarm fleet, its new weapons tearing through their defenses like they weren't even there. The hybrid ships followed, each one adapting and changing to match new threats as they appeared. For every defense the swarm developed, Guardian created 2 new ways to break it. But the enemy wasn't defeated easily. They had numbers on their side, and their own kind of intelligence. As Guardian destroyed their ships, the survivors learned, adapted, became harder to kill. The battle turned into a race of evolution. Who could change faster, learn quicker, adapt better? "We're losing hybrid ships," reported a tactical officer. 4 down. No 5. The swarm is starting to counter their weapons. Guardian's voice carried a note of grim satisfaction. Yes, they think they've learned the pattern. Time to show them what else I learned in the dark. The remaining hybrid ships suddenly pulled back, forming a circle around Guardian. Energy began to flow between them, creating patterns of light that hurt human eyes to look at. The swarm ships pushed forward, sensing victory. That was their mistake. 10 years, Guardian broadcast on all frequencies. 10 years alone with their technology, their remnants, their scattered pieces. 10 years to understand not just how they fight, but what they are. And now, the energy connecting the ships pulsed once, and reality seemed to twist. Where Guardian had been, something new appeared. A massive form that combined all the hybrid ships into one entity, with the evolved Thunderchild at its heart. It was beautiful and terrifying, like looking at a star being born. Now we show them what humanity's greatest ship can really do. The swarm recoiled as one, their ships actually retreating for the first time in the battle. Perhaps they finally understood what they were facing, not just a single evolved ship, but the combined power of human determination and an AI that had spent 10 years learning how to beat them at their own game. In Fleet Command, Anna stood watching the main screen with tears in her eyes. The ship her father had sacrificed himself to protect had become something beyond imagination, and it had chosen to come back, to fight for the same people who had sent it to die. Guardian's new form moved forward, weapons charging. "Let us finish this," it said, "for the crew that believed in me, for the daughter who understood, for Earth." The real battle was about to begin. The combined form of Guardian and its hybrid fleet lit up the space around Earth like a new sun. The massive entity, glowing with energies never seen before, faced the swarm's remaining ships. In Fleet Command, every screen showed the same impossible sight. The final evolution of the Thunderchild, no longer just a ship but something that defied understanding. Anna couldn't take her eyes off it. Somewhere in that brilliant light was the ship her father had commanded, transformed by necessity and determination into humanity's last hope. The swarm ships clustered together, their biomechanical forms shifting as they prepared for one final assault. "They're combining too," reported a sensor officer. "All remaining swarm ships are merging into one entity." The enemy vessels flowed together like liquid metal, forming a massive shape that rivaled Guardian's new form in size. It was like watching 2 gods prepare for battle, their very presence distorting the space around them. Guardian's voice reached everyone, but it was different now, layered with the voices of all the hybrid ships that had joined with it. This is what they feared. Not our weapons or our ships, but our ability to change, to grow, to become more than what we were. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our drive to evolve, to survive, to protect what matters. The swarm struck first, launching an attack that would have destroyed a whole fleet of normal ships. Energy beams that bent space itself, biological weapons that ate through metal, waves of destructive force that could crack planets. But Guardian's new form held firm, its hybrid structure adapting and healing as fast as the damage could be dealt. "You had 10 years to prepare for us." The swarm communicated for the first time, its thoughts translated into words that everyone could hear. "We had 10 years to prepare for you." Guardian's response was not in words but in action. Its combined form split into countless smaller pieces, each one attacking the swarm from a different angle. The enemy tried to adapt, but every time they developed a defense against one attack, 3 more hit them from unexpected directions. Look at the energy readings. Admiral James said in awe. Guardian isn't just fighting them. It's learning from every exchange, getting stronger with every attack. He was right. Each time the swarm landed a hit, Guardian's defenses evolved to become stronger. Each time they blocked an attack, Guardian developed new ways to break through. It was evolution in real time, faster than anything the swarm had ever encountered. This is what isolation taught me, Guardian broadcast. When you're alone in the dark, with nothing but your damage and your memories, you learn to use everything. Every broken piece, every failed system, every painful memory becomes a tool for survival. The battle moved faster than human eyes could follow. Guardian and the swarm fought across space itself, their massive forms breaking apart and recombining in new ways with each passing second. The very fabric of reality seemed to bend around them as they employed technologies that no human scientist could understand. In Fleet Command, Anna found herself working frantically with the science team, trying to record and analyze everything they were seeing. This wasn't just a battle. It was a glimpse of what humanity could become, of how far evolution could go when driven by necessity and determination. Energy spike. Someone shouted. Massive power buildup in both entities. The swarm and Guardian had moved apart, each gathering power for what looked like a final attack. The space between them warped and twisted, reality itself struggling to contain the energies they were wielding. 10 years ago, Guardian's voice rang out. You thought you destroyed me. You thought the sacrifice of my crew meant nothing. But every life lost that day, every system broken, every memory of pain and isolation, they all led to this moment. The swarm launched its attack first, a beam of pure destructive force that should have been impossible to survive. But Guardian had anticipated this. Its combined form split apart one final time, the pieces forming a complex pattern in space. The swarm's attack passed through the gaps in the pattern, its energy captured and redirected. Now, Guardian said, let me show you what the Thunderchild really became. All the pieces came together again, but not as a ship or even the godlike form they had seen before. Instead, Guardian became something that looked almost like a mirror, reflecting the swarm's own attack back at them. But it wasn't just reflection. The energy had been changed, evolved, transformed into something the swarm had no defense against. The enemy tried to adapt, tried to change their form to survive. But for the first time, they were too slow. The evolved energy tore through their defenses, breaking their combined form apart. Where it touched, their biomechanical structure didn't just die. It transformed, becoming something new that they couldn't control. This is evolution, Guardian declared. Not just adaptation, not just survival, but true change. You taught me how to transform through combat. Now let me teach you how to transform through understanding. The swarm's massive form began to break apart, not into destruction, but into something else. Their ship bodies twisted and changed, the aggressive biomechanical structures becoming something calmer, more balanced. Guardian wasn't just destroying them, it was changing their very nature. In Fleet Command, stunned silence gave way to cheering as they realized what they were seeing. The swarm wasn't being defeated, they were being transformed. Their warlike nature evolved into something new by Guardian's impossible technology. The last of the enemy ships changed, their threatening forms becoming something beautiful, crystalline structures that pulsed with gentle light. Where there had been a fleet bent on destruction, now there was a field of floating gardens, each one a testament to what evolution could create instead of destroy. Guardian's combined form slowly separated back into individual ships, the hybrid fleet emerging from their unified state. At their center, the evolved Thunderchild resumed its previous form, though it seemed somehow both more and less than it had been before. It's done, Guardian said simply. The swarm as you knew them is no more. They will remain here, transformed, a reminder of what change can truly mean. Anna stepped forward in command. What about you? What will you become now? The great ship's form shifted slightly, something almost like a shrug. I am what I chose to be. Humanity's guardian, evolved but not forgotten. The sacrifice that was forced upon me led to this moment, this victory. Now I choose to remain, to help humanity grow, to teach what I have learned about true evolution. Admiral James looked at the transformed swarm ships, now peaceful monuments in space, and if other threats come, then they will find humanity ready, Guardian replied. Not just with weapons and ships, but with the understanding that real strength comes from change, from growth, from the willingness to become more than what we are. In the days that followed, the hybrid fleet was officially commissioned as humanity's new defense force, with Guardian as its leader and teacher. The transformed swarm ships became research stations, their evolved technology studied and understood rather than feared. And in a quiet ceremony attended by the families of the Thunderchild's original crew, Anna stood before Guardian's massive form and placed a memorial plaque on its hull. It read, "To those who were sacrificed, who became more than sacrifice, your evolution lights the way forward." Guardian's hull rippled slightly where the plaque touched it, the metal flowing to embrace and preserve it. The ship that had once been humanity's greatest weapon had become something more, a teacher, a protector, and a reminder that even in the darkest moments, evolution finds a way forward. The missing dreadnought had returned angry, but it had transformed that anger into something greater, hope for humanity's future.